Something else that I have been doing, I've potted on, you remember on my windowsill I was growing a load of Shrivenham Star seedlings, and these have all been potted up and are growing away quite nicely. Some of the smaller ones have been potted into smaller pots. These are just 2-inch pots, as opposed to this one, which was a bit grown on a bit quicker. So that went into a 3.5. But these little ones, these have gone into a 2-inch pot. So, but they're growing well. I've given a number of them a water yesterday, so they're doing okay. Got some good zones on 1 or 2 of them, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with those. Now, one of the problems which I knew I was going to have is room. Now, if we go over here, I will just take my camera off the tripod. Now, these are my Regals, and they are getting huge. These are my seedling Regals from last year, and these really are getting big. They're almost sort of, you know, they're taking over to a certain degree, and I've probably got, well, a good third of this whole side of the glasshouse is taking up with these. So I want them to flower to see if they're worth holding on to. Now, as we can see here, I have got bloom in here. This is bloom beginning to come through. I would guess that this is around about 2 to 3 weeks from blooming. So I'm really wanting these to sort of get a grit really and get flowering so that I can actually decide whether they're worth keeping or not, because I've got lots of things. As I say, I've got all these little seedlings all spread around the glass house, all desperate to sort of be moved about and given a bit more light, but everything's fine, everything's growing away. I've potted on some of my last year's seedlings. I'm probably going to give this plant a name, actually. It's a good plant. So everything's growing. The only thing which are really slow off the mark are my miniatures. I've no idea why I seem to be having problems with my miniatures this year. They really haven't liked the transition. But talking of plants, this is going to be potted on. It's very dry at the moment. But these are the classic Stella yellow leaves. The classic leaves that you get on Stellas during the spring. They'll all be stripped off. I'll pot that plant up. But that is the classic problem in the spring, where you get the large variation of temperatures, puts the plants under stress, and you know, you get the issues with the red leaves. It's not a big problem though. All you need to do is strip these off. All the fresh growth coming through is good and vibrant leaf growth. So you know, they're not too bad. Now, zonals. Realistically, these are doing okay. They're growing through. Whether they're going to make the show is very debatable, because, as I've said, I stop these at around about 16 weeks. Normally, I would stop them at 18 weeks. But you know, some of them are looking better than others. So that one's not looking too bad at all. It's growing quite well. Some of the dwarfs, I think, are going to struggle to meet the time, because at 16 weeks, I just don't think that they were able to really sort of grow through. They may do. It depends on the weather. As I say, realistically, it's been probably a bit colder than what I've ideally liked. The Regals, which are doing really quite well, as one would expect it, because these were stopped in December, you may remember. They are growing through okay. Certainly no sign of any bloom, which is what I would want at this stage. We're just over 2 months now to the national show. These, I think, will probably be okay. Remarkable, really, when you consider that I stopped them in December. So that looks as if it may have paid dividends. I'm being careful with the amount of feed I give them. So, you know, I don't want to overfeed them to get so big and grow on so much that they almost get too big and a bit overzealous and want to flower. But in about a month's time, I'll go over to a high potash feed to really give them a boost. Now, the other thing that you may have noticed is that it's the middle of April, 17th, as I've said. I would normally have coated the glasshouse with the old whitewash by now, but I haven't done it yet, and I will almost certainly do it in the next well, maybe even today, primarily because they are forecasting really quite warm weather over the next few days, over Easter actually, as it goes. So I will probably consider doing that later on today. Now, one of the things on the internet is that I do get a number of questions. Now, a question that was recently asked was, what type of heater do I use? Well, it's a fan heater. It's a BioGreen. I've actually got the manual here for it. It's a BioGreen Phoenix 2.8. Now, the 2.8 probably relates to the fact that it's 2,800 watts is the maximum power. It's quite a powerful one. It has two settings, one at 1,800 watts and one at 2,800 watts. And here it is. There's a little look on the side. I mean, this is all very much as I had 4 or 5 of these when I ran the nursery for various points. This one's hanging. You can have it on a stand as well underneath. Very basically what happens is that underneath there are controls, and each is numbered 1 to 5, and each segment, basically, if you can see that, it may adjust for the light, a bit difficult to see really, probably won't focus, but what basically happens is it has a number of settings, 1 to 5, and each one of those numbers denotes 2.5 degrees centigrade. So for every 2.5 degrees centigrade you want, you turn it up. Now, I have it set to have the fan on all the time, and then the heating kicks in when it falls below the certain temperature that you've got it set at. So if I have it on dial number 2, it kicks in at around about 5 degrees centigrade and below. So when it gets below 5 centigrade, the heating element will kick in, and the fan's going all the time, so it blows that through. But there we are. It's a BioGreen Phoenix 2.8. It probably is 6 or 7 years old, so whether you can still get them, I think you probably can. I haven't checked on the internet, but it's certainly worth a go if you want a heater of that type. But I see even in garden centres now, they do sell greenhouse heaters, electric greenhouse heaters, which you never used to be able to buy ordinarily in garden centres in the UK anyway. So certainly in the UK, greenhouse heaters seemingly are more popular and more used these days. So that's an interesting note. So there we are. There's not really a great deal more to report. I will certainly keep you updated what's going on in May, because May will be a really busy month, as we always do know. Everything's growing quite well. Here's an example of a plant, a Stella, one of my dwarf Stellas for show, and I stripped all the reddening leaves off this one a few days ago. So, you know, this is how I would want it to be. It is growing relatively well. I mean, that was stopped at 16 weeks. So it really does, it all depends on the weather and what that does in the next sort of month in particular. During the sort of latter part of April, the first 3 weeks of May is always how it determines what's going to go on with the show plants. But there's going to be a lot of plants coming into bloom. I'll certainly walk you through my regals when they come into bloom, my regal seedlings. And it'll be interesting to see how they develop and the colours that I get from them. And even the development of all of these little zonal seedlings that I put through. Be interesting to see how they come as the spring and the summer progresses. But that's it for me for today. As I think this afternoon I'm going to whitewash the glass house. Some of the panes have got a bit of whitewash on them already, because when I moved the back of the glass house, I actually kept the whitewash on them all the time. So one or two of them have still got the whitewash on from last year. So it's interesting to see how that'll progress. But that's it from me for now. Remember, if you're new to this channel, click the subscribe button and the little bell that'll tell you whenever there's going to be a new video coming up. But in the meantime, that's it from me, and thanks for watching.